Jeannie.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to introduce us. All right. Good evening or good morning, everyone. So today I'm really excited because we have a fellow comadre who's been a comadre for a long time. And not only that, it weaves in perfectly with our last segment, which was with Comadre Zaira, who is the Reiki master. And it weaves in perfectly because Juliana, who we're going to hear from today, actually received her certifications, Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 from Zaira. So I am going to just introduce really quick Juliana Alvarez. She is the founder and chief harmony officer of A Life in Harmony by HCS, which references her prior business, which was named Happy Chi Solutions. She has helped many clients through the offerings of her consulting services, Feng Shui presentations, and vision board workshops, which some of which have been done for Las Comadres in person for the New York chapter and virtually, including the last worldwide Comadrazo. Juliana teaches people to harness energy solutions drawn from her Feng Shui expertise. Vision board mastery, clutter clearing know-how, proficiency in leading meditations, and ability to transfer healing energy virtually, and is a certified level 1 and level 2 Reiki practitioner. A graduate of the internationally acclaimed Feng Shui training program, the Accelerated Path. She also studied and noted figures in the world of Feng Shui, space clearing, space cluttering, healthy homes, and intuition development. She is also a certified infinite possibility trainer with based off of Mike Dooley. She incorporates a lifetime of using affirmations as well as the law of attraction. She also incorporates meditation, chakra meditations, EFT tapping meditations into work to complement her energy work. Her journey from being a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School to practicing a licensed New York State attorney, then to eventually helping people, as she would like to say, not as a doctor of law, but as a practitioner of the laws of the universe, which is an interesting one for sure. Thank you, Julie, and welcome.
Thank you, and hello, comadres. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here and be able to share with you. Thank you, Jeannie, for inviting me.
Yes, I'm excited. We have so much great things to explore here. I just wanted to just ask you a couple questions about Feng Shui and when did you actually begin?
So it all started, as many things in my life do, including becoming a comadre, with my sister, Comadre Clara Galvano Rivera. And she was having a big birthday party back in 1996. And one of the things that people kept asking was, what can I get her as a gift? And so she gave me a list of things. And on that list was a book about Feng Shui. I had never heard of Feng Shui at the time. So I was like, okay, fine. Someone actually did, buy her that as a gift. And of course, we share an apartment. So she left it hanging around the living room and I started reading it. And I was hooked. I was just fascinated that there were these sort of, theories about how the energy of where you live and how things are placed around you could actually influence your life. So I started to, at the time, there were not that many books, but I would go to the bookstore and get whatever I could find. And fast forward to 1999, I actually took my very first Feng Shui course. The story of how that came about was also interesting because it just so happened that my sister was involved in one of these like workplace, pools where they were collecting money, and to the dollar, she got the amount that was needed to cover the tuition for my first Feng Shui course. So she like handed it right over to me. She's like, you got to do this. Like there's no coincidences. So that was sort of the start of it all. And, from having read the books, I had experimented with doing, some of the adjustments at home. That actually helped Clara, who was looking to change jobs at the time to find a great new job, and other improvements that were happening for us personally. So once I took the course, and there was an initial course with lots of homework and having to help people do consultations in their homes, and I saw the results, I was like, I have to keep studying this. So I ended up taking a total of 5 courses, one of them in Hawaii of all places, and then really decided in sort of 2001, beginning of 2001, to quit my job and to go full time and starting my consultation services, while also becoming one of just 9 apprentices that my Feng Shui master had selected for a program that year. So that was the beginning. And so since, January and February 1999, when I was doing my first training, to now, it's just been a great journey.
Amazing. And how has Feng Shui helped your mind, body, and spirit?
Well, it's interesting, and I think it's one of the more surprising things when people actually have a consultation, is that they realize it's not just about the physical moving things around you in your in your space, moving the furniture or what have you. There's actually quite a lot of spiritual and sort of mindfulness component to it. And it plays out during the consultations, it plays out in the solutions that I give people, based on what their situations are. But it also starts with, even in my training to become a consultant, they sort of touch on how you have to sort of cultivate your own personal energy and chi to be able to help others, and help them to do the same. So it really is woven into the fabric of sort of what Feng Shui is, and I'll try to delve into it a little bit more during the presentation.
Can you give us any examples of consultings and like how you implemented this?
Sure. So one of my favorites is a client who was living in Connecticut and was, actually being, in a very sort of messy divorce. Her ex-husband was stalking her. So it was not a pleasant situation. And so one part of the consultation, sort of toward the end, is we sort of walk this sort of geometric pattern through the space that's sort of most impactful, which for her was the bedroom. We call it walking the 9-star path. And we're doing sort of blessings and intention, throughout that process. And when we got to the point where we were sort of in her romance corner of the room, she all of a sudden noticed that what was hanging on the wall there was a dried flowers that were actually from her wedding bouquet. And so when she told me that, I was like, oh, this has got to go. Like, this cannot stay here. So we actually sort of ceremoniously, burned it in her backyard on her, barbecue grill. And it was sort of the type to have like the little round lid that covers it. So she didn't want like the neighbors to think like all this smoke was billowing, because it took a really long time to get it lit. And then once it lit, it was like smoke all over the place. So we go back into the house to sort of, finish walking through the house and doing the consultation, when we hear this gigantic boom. And it turned out that the the dried flowers that I've been burning basically like popped the entire lid off the grill. And it was like across the
Oh,
yard. So I told her, I said, look, this is good. Like, this is a breakthrough in this situation. And sure enough, like, her husband did, stop stalking her. He started paying child support. And ultimately, she actually ended up reuniting with her high school sweetheart, and they got married. So she was kind enough to invite me to be a bridesmaid as a result. And in addition to being a client, she's, become a friend over the years.
amazing. All right. Walk us through your beautiful presentation.
All right, I will begin sharing my screen, and hopefully everyone can see that. So the first question everybody wants to know is sort of, what is Feng Shui? The words themselves actually translate into wind and water. And that comes from the sort of Chinese concept that when you choose your house, and also when you choose the place to sort of bury your ancestors. It's a culture that's very rich in sort of ancestor worship. You were supposed to select places in the landscape where you would be protected from harsh winter winds and also have access to fresh water for prosperity and health of the people there. So these basically developed, well over 3,000 years ago as design principles that we can use today to better support our well-being and to live in harmony with our environment. And that's, you're doing that by enhancing the chi or the life force that is the energy within us and around us. So it turns out Feng Shui is only one way of cultivating chi. And it does include, as I mentioned, mind and spiritual practices to help you achieve vitality and balance. So we're going to sort of go into that a little bit further. So in cultivating your chi, the chi is your energy or your life force that needs to be nurtured and cultivated. The basic essence of your chi never changes, but the state of your chi is in fact changeable. And the factors that can sort of have an impact, as Professor Lin, the Feng Shui master who taught my Feng Shui master and with whom I had the pleasure of studying before he passed on, the list that he gave of sort of the influences that can sort of shift someone's individual chi energy is ourselves, right? The things that we do, the people around us, the environment, events that happen, our self-conduct, social conduct, political nature, and other factors. And so while everybody has their own individual chi, there are qualities that are common to every human being. And so examples of that are, if you see someone who's depressed, their chi energy is going to shrink. While anyone who's feeling sort of, abundant and prosperous and sort of, on the top of their game is going to have their chi expanded. So there's sort of this sense of, sort of having stronger chi, weaker chi, and being able to sort of analyze that. So the real goal is to sort of regularly take notice and adjust and maintain the balance between your inner and your external self, sort of the yin and the yang energy, and to cultivate flexible, vital, limitless chi. And the ways that are taught to be able to cultivate the chi is using your own force, using natural forces, using spiritual force, using Feng Shui, using the force of others, and then other methods. And so as you can see, Feng Shui is only one of the ways that you can cultivate your energy. So I'm going to go through these just sort of the more important ones quickly. Using your own force involves things that include recommendations for practicing meditation. You can also balance the 5 element energy within you and sort of around you. And the 5 elements being wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. There's something called the practice of the 16 ways to nurture your life. These are actually a variety of energy exercises, and anyone who's done sort of Tai Chi or Qigong exercises in particular, and even like yoga, breathing exercises would find much similarity in the type of exercises that sort of fall into this category. And then there's using natural force, and that's sort of, getting out in nature, right? The energy of the sun, the energy of the moon. Today we have the great fortune of having it be the summer solstice, and so it's the longest day of the year. So the power of the sun is sort of what we look to as sort of being the strong force today, and sort of being the energy that sort of opens up into summer. And an example of this is that there happens to be a traditional meditation that is used in Feng Shui called the Great Sunshine Buddha meditation, in which people sort of imagine sunshine, and if possible, they're doing the exercise while actually looking at the sun, helps them to sort of, achieve a greater increased level of personal energy. And then there's sort of breathing techniques and breathing meditations that are also considered using natural force, because you're using air, which is one of the elements, and using that natural element to combine in your body. Using spiritual force is pretty straightforward. While Feng Shui and sort of these practices were sort of kept intact by sort of the Buddhist monks over the many centuries, the principles themselves are not religious principles. They're just sort of, practices and guidelines. And so basically using spiritual force in this context can be prayer of any sort that you want to engage in, and going to places of worship or doing spiritual practices that you're comfortable with, whatever background you're from. And then finally, we get to using Feng Shui, which is basically adjusting the what we call the Feng Shui energy flow of your home and your workplace, any places that you're inhabiting, and obviously at a larger level, it's also sort of the energy of the natural world around you, right? There's a Feng Shui energy to not only your home, but the house or the building you live in, the plot of land that you're on, the city that you're living in. So the Feng Shui energy of New York is very different from the Feng Shui energy of, let's say, San Antonio or Los Angeles or Chicago. So it sort of breaks down, from the very small to the very large spaces in our lives. And then using the force of others can be things like the energy of others around you, sort of keeping people who have good energy, sort of positive energy around you, and also receiving chi transfusions from people that are considered sort of gurus in that field. And the other methods actually ties in very much so to Feng Shui, because it talks about what are called transcendental cures. And we use those a lot in Feng Shui. And what that means is essentially you're providing a solution to a situation where it doesn't make any common sense, but over the thousands of years, there's been sort of proven that doing that particular action or taking that action actually works. And so an example would be where we might hang wind chimes to sort of moderate the energy in a particular place in someone's apartment, where there's actually no chance of like the wind ever actually hitting the wind chime, right? And so it makes no sense on the sort of common sense level. But if you place, I often say that, Feng Shui is like acupuncture for your living space. So it's almost like the wind chime becomes the needle that you put in a particular area to sort of moderate some type of blockage or problem of energy flow. And by giving your intention, and sort of, creating that object into sort of a sacred assignment that it's supposed to do, it becomes in that moment what we call a transcendental cure. And then there's also just using like folk medicine, folklore, that's sort of culturally appropriate. So now moving more directly into Feng Shui itself, I wanted to give a quick summary of key Feng Shui concepts. And for those of you that attended the Comadrazo back in April 2023, I apologize, it's a little bit of a repeat, but I always like to sort of give the very sort of foundational elements so that everybody can be on the same page when we discuss Feng Shui. So again, Qi or Qi is the life force energy. The main focus of Feng Shui is to look at energy flow, sort of the invisible that we can't see, but we can actually feel, right? So to give you an example, sometimes you go to someone's home and there may be a chair or a sofa that like nobody wants to ever sit in. Usually there's a Feng Shui reason for that. It's placed in such a way where maybe it's getting too much of a rush of strong energy coming in, and people feel sort of vulnerable if they're sitting there. So they try to avoid it and sit somewhere else that they feel more comfortable. So even though we can't see the energy, we can often feel the energy or sort of see the ramifications of what's happening with the energy. In Feng Shui, we deal with what we call the main life aspirations, and those are health, wealth, reputation, relationships, children, and creativity are grouped together. Helpful people and travel are grouped together, career and family. And we use a tool called the Bagua, which is sort of a map that helps you to determine sort of what area of the either a room or an entire floor plan or a plot of land, sort of where each of these 9 life aspiration areas fall within that map so that we can make adjustments to improve the quality of each of those areas. We then talk about the doorway to harmony, because in the school of Feng Shui in which I was trained, which is called Black Hat, named for the hats that the Buddhist monks actually wore, the way that the energy sort of comes into a space, and we sort of analyze the entire floor plan that we're considering, is through the main architectural doorway to the space. So that's the doorway to harmony. Stagnated flow is what we're all trying to avoid. And one of the things that can most often stagnate flow of energy is clutter. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But that's one of the things that can stagnate the flow. Poison arrows are how in Feng Shui we describe where there's lots of sharp corners, maybe architectural corners, and the energy tends to sort of bounce off of them in a more erratic way. And the ideal in Feng Shui is to have the energy flow sort of smoothly and gently, and not erratically. So there are things that we can do when we sort of see that in a particular space. The main thing underlying sort of all of this, and sort of the reason it works, is that energy influences energy. And, you know, if you think about, you're sitting on a chair right now, the chair seems solid, but in reality, it's lots of sort of vibrating particles, right, that hold together, just like we ourselves are sort of energy particles holding human form. If you sort of do a test where you sort of use a tuning fork, and you sort of have 2 tuning forks, ultimately, when both of them are sort of, you know, vibrating together, they will come into sort of an alignment. And so we can see how energy can actually, you know, align and sort of change the nature of the energy of something else. And that's how we are able to make the adjustments in Feng Shui in someone's personal space to be able to take advantage of this sort of principle of energy. The other thing too is that energy also includes our intentions and our thoughts. And more and more, you know, what I've come to sort of see in my own practice is that combining, you know, other types of modalities that deal with the energy of thought, in addition to the sort of more physical practices in Feng Shui, really accelerates change for the positive in people's lives. And finally, there's the Feng Shui cures or adjustments, which, as I said, sometimes don't always make sense, but they, you know, have been proven to sort of help remedy energy blockages or energy situations in a person's space. So this is the Bagua Feng Shui map. For those of you that are able, you can actually download this for free from my website. So hopefully, if the website can be put in the chat, folks can actually download it so you can see it much more clearly on your screen. But the Bagua is essentially this octagonal shape, right? So it's like the shape of a stop sign, essentially, 8-sided. And in the center, you have the 9th area. So basically those 9 life aspirations that I mentioned earlier, you're going to see reflected on this map. So at the very center, you have health, which is significant because obviously, with, you know, as we like to say, without health, you don't have anything, right? It's the center where all the other spokes of life sort of grow out of. And most of these areas have their own color, and also they have like their own elements that are related to them. So for health, it's the center of your home, the center of your of any room. The element is earth, and you have the color yellow or earth tones complementing that. These markers here basically are to indicate where the door to a space might be. So if you were standing at the doorway of your bedroom, let's say, you're going to either notice that, for instance, if you were standing where I'm pointing the arrow now, you would have very, very little space to your left-hand side, but the wall on the other side of the door would sort of extend much further on your right-hand side. So we would say that you're coming in through this knowledge and spirituality area. If the door seemed to be in the middle of the wall, where you have almost equal space on both sides to your right and left, you would be coming in through the career sector. And if you were coming in through the door and you have much more space on the wall adjacent to your left and very little space to your right, you would be coming in through the helpful people travel area. So basically, when you use this map, you put it in front of you, you stand in the door, and you sort of try to visualize sort of what the areas in front of you are. So the uppermost left corner of the room is going to be your sort of wealth and abundance prosperity area. It has the colors of purple essentially as the main color, and complementary colors are green and red. And Feng Shui also has relationships to the human body. So this area also sort of governs the area of the hips, the pelvis, the bones. If you're standing in your doorway, all the way the sort of the right uppermost corner of the room is going to be relationships and marriage. It's related to the internal organs. It's related to the sort of essence of mother. The color is pink, and the complementary colors are red and white. The very middle sort of wall facing you when you're sort of looking into the room is the fame or reputation area. And that's associated with the element of fire. On the body, it's the eye. The direction is south, regardless of what your actual, sort of geographical location is. And the color is red. As we work around the wheel, to the right-hand side, sort of middle of the wall, you're going to have the children and creativity, which represents sort of the future. The element is metal. The color is white. Helpful people and travel, you're going to find associated with sort of the father energy. Physically, the head. The color is gray, and the complementary colors are white and black. Here, sort of the bottom center is the career area, which is associated with the element of water. Physically, it's the ears, the direction north, and the color black. And this sort of left-hand side is the knowledge and spirituality area, which the main color for is blue. Complementary colors are black and green. Physically, it represents hands. And finally, last but not least, you have to the left middle side, family or the past is represented by this as well. And also sort of day-to-day money as compared to sort of the wealth abundance area that's above it. And the element for this area is wood. The main color is green, and also is represented or governs sort of like the foot or your feet. So that's sort of just a quick rundown of the Bagua map itself. To give you a sort of simplified way of understanding it, this is how you might apply the Bagua to just a desk or a dining table surface, right? Like whatever, sort of, I'm calling it a desk just so we can kind of have a quick understandable example. So when you sort of extend this octagon to fit the shape, you see that usually where people sit in their chair is going to be closest to the career area. Over to the right-hand side, you're going to have this bottom corner of the desk be sort of helpful people. You're going to have the children area, the relationship area, fame and reputation, the wealth, the family, and the knowledge, right? So this is just so you can sort of picture how you can shrink down or sort of expand out the Bagua map to visualize it from something as small as a table or a desk to actually an entire room and ultimately like the entire floor of a floor plan. So here, again, following the example of the desk, you can think about sort of what could be some items that are, everyday items, but we can, through the use of the transcendental cure that we were talking about, by using intention and sort of using sort of the metaphysics of being able to sort of bless it with that intention, we give it a job, and it can help enhance the areas that are represented. So here you see that the 9 areas of the Bagua, sometimes it's easier to picture them as almost like a tic tac toe board. So you sort of have, we sort of drew faint vertical lines horizontally and across. It's still the same 9 areas that were in the octagon, but it helps you sort of see how they sort of touch adjacent to each other on a space. So for the abundance, we might put something that represents sort of like nice growing greenery. Maria, you have a raised hand.
Are the just quickly are in this tic-tac-toe thing, are they always in the same place?
Yes.
So whatever room, whatever desk, whatever table,
Right.
this is exactly where they will always be.
That's where they will be. And
Okay.
so what can happen is if you have, like, let's say New York City is infamous for having like L-shaped apartments, right? So you might have an L where you might be missing a few of these, right? If it's the shape of a room. So, as a feng shui consultant, I look out for that and be like, hey, you're missing your relationship area. And maybe you're missing like your creativity area. How can we now make up for those missing areas, sort of bring them in energetically to where they, the architects have sort of cut them off. And we can do that with different objects, including, mirrors and crystals and different things that we might use. So excellent question. But this is definitely, you always stand at what, if it's a table, you're going to look at like the chair that you sort of come into. If it's a room, you're looking for what door you're standing in, and you're always seeing the map sort of unfold in front of you. So it's like the furthest, left-hand corner across from you is always going to be abundance. And the one on the right-hand side is always going to be relationships, and everything else falls in place. So thank you for asking that. So some of the things that, that we might, use as sort of, cures or ways to sort of adjust the energy, uplift the energy. We might have like nice green plants or bamboo stalks, in the abundance area. Here we're showing like a calculator, right? Because like maybe this is in the office, it might be something that's office appropriate to put. You might put in the relationship area, a picture of yourself and your partner. If you don't have a partner, but you're looking for one, you might put, like a postcard or a picture of something like, there's like Klimt's The Kiss, right? Like a famous piece of artwork that you can sort of have on a frame. In the fame reputation area, some people have task lighting. It could also be like the nameplate on your desk that, has your name and your title. That could be something to put here. Helpful people, it might be the phone, because that's how people connect with you all day at your job, right? Now that we're using laptops, the laptop's most often going to be like right in the career area, because it's going to be right near the edge of the desk where our fingers can reach. And so that's just, again, just some example. It might be like a little family token, something that makes you think about your family, or something made of wood, like this box that's being shown is made of wood, and wood is the element for family. So you might have something like that on your desk. Knowledge, and maybe you have some files or some reference books or things that you sort of need to keep handy at your desk. So this would be a good place for those. Creativity, we put like, some scissors and markers and pens, but it could be, something completely different. But just to give you sort of a quick idea of what we might use. And as I mentioned before, you're giving these objects sort of jobs. They go from being everyday mundane objects to being what we call transcendental cures. And the way that's done is through something called the 3 secret reinforcement, which is a way of blessing items with the power of your mind and your visualization, the power of using your voice to state a mantra, and also taking physical mudras or hand gestures to actually bless the item, and use all these 3 techniques simultaneously as you're sort of thinking of what is the end result you want, right? You want increased abundance, or you want to have a great, happy relationship. And so that's how we use the adjustment items in Feng Shui. So I wanted to give some quick tips. Tip number 1, which I sort of alluded to earlier, is that clutter is sort of public enemy number 1 when it comes to Feng Shui. A genius like Albert Einstein actually says, out of clutter, find simplicity, right? Try to find and simplify things around you. Because if there is sort of overwhelming amounts of things, especially if it's like things pile up in the same spot over and over, and it's not, it's not like you're having things that are decorative or that you really love having there. It's just like, just all the stuff just keeps piling up. That's a sign that the energy there is getting stagnated. So you do want to do your best to try to figure out what area of the bagua that represents, because you may find that there's a correlation between where the stagnation is happening, where the clutter is happening, and some area of your life that's having some challenges. So that gives extra motivation, I always say, to find out where it's happening so you can correct it and really sort of open up the energy flow to experience better results in that area of your life. Tip number 2, whether you're in an office or in your living room, no backs to the door. Even if you live by yourself, it will reduce your anxiety. It's just, as we are built as human beings energetically, we like to be able to see sort of, people coming towards us, not coming up behind us. And so this is true in the kitchen, in your, any room of the house. You always want to try to have, like, your power spot is always going to be where you have the broadest view of who's coming and going. And so one of the ways to correct for that, pretty simply in some areas, is to have some sort of cleverly placed mirrors that will allow you to be able to see behind you if you don't have it, like, especially like people working in a cubicle, or where you're sort of right up against a wall and there's really no way you can kind of get a better angle onto the room. Using mirrors is a great way to adjust for that. Tip number 3 is to add life force, right? So when we were talking about cultivating chi, we sort of heard the category of the sort of using natural force, right? So to the extent you can, adding living things to your space, like, wonderful, healthy plants, is a great idea. Sometimes it's impractical, right? And you may have a space where there's no windows, there's not adequate light. So it's okay to use sort of facsimiles, right? Like fake plants, fake flowers that look really nice. People often ask me, like, what about fresh flowers? Flowers are great, but they are going to eventually wilt, right? And so you have to remove them as soon as they start to wilt, because the wilting just will mean that area wherever they're placed is going to start experiencing a shrinking or decreasing of the sort of strong energy chi that you would want to have otherwise. So you definitely don't want to keep dried flowers or dead flowers or wilting flowers around you. It's much better to use either healthy plants or fake flowers instead of dried ones. So just word to the wise. Tip number 4 is to increase your lighting wherever you are. Natural light access obviously is the best. So whenever you can sort of, have nice bright light coming from the windows, that's great. But obviously, test lighting, different types of lighting in your room, so that you have the ability to, sort of have bright lights when needed. Even when a lamp is not being used, as long as it's got the working bulb and it's plugged in, like, it can still be a feng shui adjustment if it's sort of standing in a corner where you need to uplift the energy of that particular part of the bagua. And so another tip related to this is that if you have a light bulb that blows out, you always want to have, like, replacements at the ready, because again, when the light bulb blows out, it means that the energy in that area is now decreasing rapidly, and you want to sort of replace it with a working light as soon as possible. Tip number 5 is create cheerful surroundings for yourself, right? Think about what makes you smile, what inspires you, what makes you feel good. Whether we're at home or at the office, you spend time surrounded by these objects. I know Maria had wanted me to try to almost give you a little tour of my home, but that's really hard when you're dealing with the sort of trying to do the presentation and the laptop and everything else at once. So this is just a photo of one of the areas in the apartment. It's actually in the sort of wealth area. So I have artworks that are handmade, created by some of my favorite Puerto Rican artists here in New York. We have the 3 kings and the 3 queens, because why not? That just always just kind of makes me feel good when I see them. And I have like another Three Kings representation here. It always brings those sort of memories and thoughts of like happy times and celebration. And then I have this is the year of the dragon. So I have my dragon with some Chinese coins and red tassels, which are to sort of attract abundance since it's the wealth area. And the colors, as you remember from the Bagua, that are associated with wealth are purple. So we have purple in the Three Kings clothing. And even here we have purple in the robe. So red is also sort of considered an auspicious color. So we have red background here. We have the red in the clothing and also in the tassels. So just a sample of what I've done in my own apartment. And then there's enhancing the space by using various cures. And so you see pictured here what we call a faceted Feng Shui crystal. And you may be able to see this if I hold it up. This is one, I have a little wooden stand where I actually keep my crystal hanging, and we hang it on red thread because that activates sort of, again, we consider red in Feng Shui traditions an activating color. And so this is something that I can place wherever I need to sort of enhance the energy. It's an easy way to sort of keep it in a very handy way. And the reason for something like the crystals, or earlier I mentioned like the wind chimes or anything else you might use, like with the crystals, it's about the crystals create sort of these refraction of light. So you sort of almost have these rainbow effects, and it just gives the way it gives the energy flowing around it sort of a different way to sort of disperse in the room in a more gentler and sort of positive way. It uplifts the energy. Tip number 7, as I mentioned earlier, I really believe that if you can combine the Feng Shui with other types of ways of sort of keeping your own personal vibration positive and strong and uplifted, and sort of focus the intention and sort of the energy of your mind on the things that you do want to sort of manifest into your life, is a way to just accelerate change. So here's just a quick sort of, a partial vision board meant for vacation time. But you can do them for any sort of topic. It's something that I've been doing for years, even before I began Feng Shui. Years before that, I had learned about vision boards and had been using them successfully. So something that I've had a lot of personal experience with. And when I saw that I could combine it with the knowledge of Feng Shui, it just made perfect sense to sort of use both tools. Tip number 8 is right out of my living room sofa. It's about, using positive affirmations, keeping your thoughts positive. Thoughts, like I said, are energy. My teacher, Julie, always talks about thoughts become things, choose the good ones. And that's really great advice. So here you see, like, I have pillows in my living room that have, positive sayings. And every time I pass them by or sitting across from them or sitting by them, it's a great reminder. I also have like affirmation magnets and things on my like bathroom mirror. So when I'm getting ready in the morning or, washing up at night, like I get to see them, repeat them to myself mentally or say them out loud. But they're a great reinforcement to just having sort of that positive thought energy and the focus on sort of what's good. Another part of the thoughts become things is I'm a firm believer in sort of gratitude as a sort of energy cure in and of itself. When we're focused on the things we're grateful for, we're not focused on the lack of the things that we don't have. So you actually, by focusing on the gratitude, you ultimately sort of attract more good to you. So that's another important sort of energy tool. And tip number 9 is actually the meditation, right? That we talked about in the sort of various ways of cultivating chi, that meditation is an important part. So I wanted to offer a quick solstice, summer solstice meditation, since this is a special day. So if you will all indulge me and just feel free to close your eyes and just take a breath. Just relax your shoulders and start to just breathe gently, kind of put a smile on your face and just feel relaxed. And as you start to breathe in and out, just imagine that through the top of your head, light is coming in from the universe, bright white light. There's like a ball of light, maybe 6 inches above your head, and it starts to come in through the very top of your head. And it fills up your head, your eyes, behind your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your throat, starts to go down your throat. The bright white light, as you continue to breathe gently, just goes down your shoulders, flowing down all the way through your arms, your hands, your fingers. You almost feel a tingle at the tips of your fingertips as the light exits your fingertips. And more white light keeps coming in through the top of your head and flowing down through your shoulders, your torso, your lungs, all your internal organs, starts to go down your spine, into your hips, into your um, legs, down your thighs. More white light keeps flooding into you nice and gently as you continue to breathe, and it fills up your knees, your calves, down your ankles, down through your feet, and out through your toes. And you're just completely filled with bright white light. And now that light from the universe starts to collect stronger and stronger right behind your navel. In Chinese culture, we call this the lower dantian, and it's sort of where your vitality energy is located. So start to see that white light concentrating and concentrating to become like a little small, compact energy white light ball right behind your navel. And you're collecting this energy and collecting this energy into that spot. And now you can actually picture this light from the universe, which is very healing, coming in through all the pores of your body, not just through the top of your head, but from all your pores, coming in and concentrating in that lower dantian area right behind, deep behind your navel. And that's going to give you healthy vitality. It's harnessing sort of this light to give you energy for the summer season. And now as you take another gentle breath in and out, focus on your middle dantian, which is the area right where your rib cage opens up near your heart, sort of in the middle of your torso. And again, white light pours in through the pores of every pore of your body, and it starts to collect there, and it feeds the healthy energy of your heart. And you see the light actually change to red, and it's giving healthy energy support to your heart. The summer solstice, which ushers in summer, actually the organ that sort of takes the lead in the summer season is your heart. So you want to definitely nurture your heart, open your heart, self-compassion, compassion to others, unconditional love. Just feel that unconditional love, and it's pouring into you from the universe because the universe loves you. And just feel that energy collecting to protect you, to heal you, to help you get rid of any energy blockages that you might have. And now, as you focus on just having that bright white light flood all through your body, all through your pores, through every tissue, organ, every cell filled with light, just say to the universe, or say to your spiritual master, whoever that you may resonate with, whether it's Jesus or Buddha or anything else, just ask that any and all blockages that you may have are now being dissolved by the light. And you can see then any blockages are now, all the light is sort of shooting back out through the pores of your body, back to the ends of the universe. All that light just shooting out, removing any blockages with it. And just keep breathing gently and breathe into your heart. And now you see a nice, wonderful spring green energy where your heart is. And it fills up your lungs, fills up your heart, fills up your torso. And then change your focus back to the lower dantian, the area behind your navel, and see you still have that concentrated ball of white energy deep behind your navel. And that's going to be there to help support you for this entire summer. Keep cultivating your energy and accepting this gift from the universe to support you. And now just let any remaining white light just move up through your body and out through the top of your head, slowly and gently, so that it collects in that original ball of white light that was 6 inches above your head. Take a nice deep breath in, a nice deep breath out. And now start to feel yourself sort of sitting in your chair, wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers on your hands. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So that was our harvesting the chi meditation. And I hope it helps set you up for a wonderful summer ahead. So my contact information is on the screen. Feel free to take a photo of it so you can have it handy as needed. We'll also try to place all of this in the chat. But now, Jeannie, with your help, we'll address some of the questions that have come in.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to rewind just a little bit. There were some questions that were asked in the beginning, which one is recognizing your energy flow. Is that like listening to your gut, your instincts?
I think that there is some of it to that. We should pay attention to our intuitions and our gut feelings. As a Feng Shui consultant, like I said, it was like 5 very, long training courses to sort of get to the point where I feel I can help analyze the energy flow for somebody else and in their home. But definitely for yourself, even starting with that sort of instinctual feeling for it, definitely that is something you should pay attention to.
And repeating affirmations. It says energy influences energy. Is that like repeating affirmations to make things happen?
So it's one way of using energy, right? It's the energy of your thought. It's because you have to have the thought of the affirmation before you speak it, which is a different form of energy. But then there's also sort of the way that, for instance, because we ourselves are energy and everything around us is energy, the way you place things in your home, one object can influence how sort of fast or slow, or how to uplift the energy in a particular spot that's going to help you to enhance one of those areas on the Bagua map, right? So that's energy influencing energy as well in a more physical sense. And again, like I said, it could be you're putting a healthy plant where you need some upliftment in that area of the Bagua. It could be that you are using, sort of the crystal, like I was, here it is. So it might be that, Master Lin used to say that as a Feng Shui consultant, if the only thing you had at your disposal was a sort of a crumpled up gum wrapper with enough intention and purpose and sort of using the 3 secret reinforcements, you could use that as a Feng Shui adjustment if you absolutely had to, right? So ultimately, even though they're sort of physical objects, it's not often as important what that object is as much as the sort of energy, thought, and intention behind it, and the energy of that.
And on the topic of crystals, someone asked, are there any specific Feng Shui crystals, or will any crystal do?
So we tend to use, as you saw, the faceted crystals. They're basically sort of fairly round, just come to a little bit of a narrow tip. I'll sort of show it again. This is a 40 mm size. Sometimes we use larger ones, or smaller ones, depending on the size of the space. It sort of needs to be proportionate to where we're placing it. And there's also the use of sort of for personal use. You can see like I have crystals that are on my bracelet. And I have sort of the necklace, which is also the faceted crystals. And so they help to sort of, again, uplift the energy. Blue is the color for the throat chakra. So if I'm doing a lot of speaking, I gravitate toward the blue to support me in that. The sort of what we call Aurora Borealis crystal is actually more of a kind of all-purpose uplifting energy crystal. And so again, these are, I want to sort of set them apart from what are considered more traditional, like gemstone crystals, right? These are actually like Austrian crystal that are sort of polished and faceted to reflect light a lot. So they sort of uplift the energy that's moving past them. And if you're interested in the bracelets, there actually are some samples on my website, and we can sort of discuss any personal needs that people may have.
Yeah. And I also added in the chat the direct links to your tips and your resources and the page that you went through. I also listed that there.
Thank you. Thank
No
you.
problem. We have one last question. What if your office has two doors, one to the street and the rest to the house? Where do you place the Bible?
Okay, so the way we sort of go in to assess a space, right? If it's, you're always going to look first at the overall floor plan, and it's often easier to see it as a drawn out floor plan, the main entrance to the house, right? And by that, it's like what we call the architectural entrance. So for somebody, if you're in an apartment, it's clear you have a front door, like that's your front door. You're going to analyze the entire floor plan from that perspective. And then once you get to each individual room, again, you're going to have the doorway to that room. So you can analyze the larger space, and then you analyze each individual space within the larger home. And this actually kind of leads to another feng shui principle, which is you can kind of layer the adjustments, so to speak. So if you have, let's say you have an issue with, you want to increase your relationship energy, you could enhance the relationship sort of area for the entire floor plan, wherever that may be. Let's say that's, it ends up being in the kitchen, but then you also want to enhance the relationship part of the bagua in the bedroom, and you want to enhance it in your office, and you want to enhance it in other places, because now you're multiplying the ways in which that relationship energy is getting uplifted throughout the floor plan. So you use the architectural door to the main apartment or home, and then you sort of shrink it down again, and you apply the bagua to each area. Now, the two entry doors, you have to think about sort of for you what that main entry is. So to give you an example, sometimes people have like the main entry door, and then they have like a garage door, and that's where they always go in because they bring in the groceries in that way. The garage door is not the door that you're going to use. You're going to use the main architectural door. In the area where I think I saw a little bit of a post real quick that, if there was sort of like a door to your space and then there's a door to the renter space, by having divided the home, you basically have to now deal, primarily with the space that you have control over. So you're going to use the main door for your space, if that makes sense.
And if the home is like a square and the garage is in the left side, does that count for a spiritual corner, or is it the only parts of the home?
Yeah, no, the garage counts.
Yeah.
And similarly, like people often think like, okay, if I get rid of my clutter and I shove it all into the closet, like I've solved my problem. And the answer is no, you haven't, because the closet counts too, just like the garage does. So you have to think about, what part of the bagua falls in that space, and sort of what are the implications of that. So, and it's funny, like as I've done consultations, like sometimes it's harder to do somebody's like studio apartment where there's very little space than it is to do like a 2-story house, because you don't have as many issues about like where can we put things and how can we sort of place the furniture, etc. So so it can be challenging, and as a lifelong apartment dweller, I totally commiserate.
Out of clutter, find simplicity, right? That was your tip number one. I
Right.
wanted to reference that. I thought it was pretty cool. I actually, when you were speaking, I took a lot of different notes, but I have one of your quotes when you were talking about cultivating your chai. You said your chi. You said acupuncture, it's like acupuncture for your living space.
Right. So, in Chinese medicine, for anybody out there who's actually ever experienced acupuncture, right? They take these very thin needles and they've mapped out meridians throughout your body that have relationships to different illnesses, et cetera. And the idea is that if you can use the needle as a sort of tool to be able to unblock that energy, it then creates healthy flow for your body, and whatever is ailing you, ultimately, it may take several treatments or whatever, but will alleviate, right? And hopefully someday be totally taken care of. The same idea applies to using the feng shui cures in the home. You're looking to unblock any blockages, and you're looking to make sure that there's sort of this free flow of energy throughout the home from the moment it sort of comes in your main door, as it continues to flow through the home. Um, and so the items that you place, whether they're furniture, whether they're decorations, whether it's actual, things that we decide are going to be used as a feng shui cure, as a sort of metaphor for that needle that would be put in the body meridian, you're using these feng shui placements to unblock the energy, to moderate the flow and just make it much more supportive, so that ideally, right, like your home space, your office spaces, are all there to support you and uplift you, so that you have more balance between, like, if you're trying to keep positive internal energy and sort of keep yourself positive and sort of enhance your own energy, you can do as much, sort of self-care and, yoga and Tai Chi and all the good things, right? And the positive affirmations. But if your home energy is very stagnated, it's almost like you're fighting against it all the time, and it ends up exhausting you, so you really want to, like I said, use the tools you can to create the supportive energy externally, while you're also doing the tools you have to create positive energy internally and keep those aligned and in balance.
And on the topic of New York City and living in these kind of cramped apartments, what is your advice for when you have roommates? And you can be like feng shuied out, but the person that you live with is kind of, has a cluttered space. Like personally, and even as a friend, like if you walk into someone's home and like, how do you approach, you can quickly maybe talk about how you would approach that as a consultant, or maybe even as a friend. Like how do
Well,
you
I have a great story. I had a client who shared an apartment,
Mhm.
and her roommate, when she took me over to do the physical sort of walkthrough for the consultation, this was pre-pandemic, so I was doing everything in person, and before I learned Reiki, so I could do things sort of long distance as well. But I went into her room, she let me take a look at her roommate's room, and it was, so, I mean, I can't even, you couldn't see the bed for the piles of stuff, right? It was just like out of this world. It was on another level in terms of like just sloppiness and clutter and just everything. And she told me that one of the things that the roommate would do is he would kind of like bring things home that he'd spot in the garbage, or like, the dumpster diver kind of person, right? And so I said, look, you can only control the parts you can control, but try talking to him about what this consultation was today. I always give my clients sort of, things that are sort of, handouts and takeaways that they can use for reference, but they can also share it with the people in their family or in their home. So, she was able to sort of have that conversation, share some of the materials. And don't he was like inspired to start kind of like, trying, right? Like trying to do something. Well, he found money inside some of the stuff that he was getting rid of. And
Yeah.
so, he became motivated, right? Like now he's like, oh, wait, like, if I clean up my space, like this is going to get better for me. And, like that was enough to convince that one person. Now, there may be people that are beyond convincing, but all you can do is all you can do, in terms of the space you have control of. But often I think when when you have those conversations and people understand that like it can affect their health, it can affect their finances, and if they see the sort of that the areas that are most cluttered are the ones that they're suffering from in their life, right? Like maybe they're having trouble, you know, in their family relationships, or they're having trouble with, you know, having, you know, finding a job or having, you know, a relationship. They're going to start to come around. So definitely, you know, I think having those conversations, even if it goes nowhere, it's better to make the attempt. And then, you know, you can also try to, you know, do what you can sort of subtly in terms of, you know, sometimes there's ways to sort of uplift energy, in terms of the, you know, maybe you use aromatherapy to sort of like infiltrate their space a little bit, right? Like just to kind of uplift the energy to the extent you can,
Yeah.
even if it's not possible to like get rid of all their mess for them.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really good advice.
All right.
Do you also do Zoom consultations? Someone,
I do. I had, and in fact, that was, you know, a result of taking the Reiki level 1 and 2, with Zaida. So, you know, it was a way for me to be able to, you know, work with energy, from long to, because there's hands-on Reiki for healing,
yes.
but there's also remote Reiki. And so that became a way that I could help my clients during the pandemic. So that was an important addition to my skill sets.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your offerings, for always offering us your offerings, and we always learn so much from you. Yes, we'll have her resources, and we have her website, her LinkedIn, and we are going to follow up with some other resources, right, Juliana?
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly mention that I will be offering a workshop next Wednesday. So just want to mention that it's called Thrive, a Wellness 101 workshop. And in it, I'm hoping to basically, you know, talk a little bit more about sort of that, the Feng Shui sort of basics, as it impacts your health and wellness and your well-being, overall. So, you know, you'll receive some techniques that you'll be able to implement right away. And as I say, you'll bloom where you're planted and thrive right now. So we'll go through that, and hopefully that will let you thrive this summer and going forward. The details are on my my LinkedIn, but I will also now sort of drop it into the chat, so that you can have that easily available. So let me do that right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And again, if you haven't already checked out the last segment, which was with Zaida Rivera, who is a Reiki master, I would also recommend checking that out, and then checking this video out over and over and over again later so that we can encourage our friends and our family members.
And we
to
have
feng
taped this
shui.
session, so it will be available.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening or the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
Thank you.
Bye.